Today, Christjahn Beck, the head of the Atheists up at Iowa State, is back, and we've got questions. Maybe you do too. Join us, 244-0077, live here on The Truth, 99.3.
Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome. We are here, The View from a Pew, and we appreciate you taking the time to plug in this afternoon. We are live. If you're listening on the radio, if you happen to be listening on a podcast, we may be pre-recorded. This show was recorded on the 6th of February in the afternoon, but we have a tendency of replaying our programs, not only on the weekends, but sometime if I'm gone. And, of course, now I have Frank, so probably we won't be replaying shows on Thursday or Friday, but when I am gone for whatever reason, we'll play a best of. Frank's got to get better at this, or I'm just going to keep playing best of. So you're on the spot here, cowboy.
Okay.
We also have special guests today, Randy and Jill King from King's Christian Bookstore. I don't know how much they're going to talk today. They do have a microphone in front of them, and they have my permission, but they've never been to the studio, and they are avid fellow listeners, and I appreciate Jill's input. Almost every show, Jill will say something to me through private message on Facebook that I'll tell you on the air. So she is an intricate part of the mindset that we do here on this show. So it's nice to have him in the studio for the first and hopefully not the last time. Ryan's producing, and today's special guest is Christjahn Beck. That's spelled Christjahn. Christjahn was is a preacher's kid. And in his, did Bible studies and led youth groups and Lutheran, right?
Presbyterian.
And in his junior year, started questioning what he had been raised to believe. I think that's the right way to put it.
Yep.
And when he began to question that, he discovered that, your words, not mine. What did you discover?
I just discovered that the Bible wasn't quite as authoritative as I had been giving it credit for a long time. I think it's easy to come to... I think we all, especially in our early years, put the Bible on a pedestal. And when I sat down to really evaluate it, like I've talked about before on your show, with an effort, with an eye towards understanding it to better spread the word at the time, I just came to the understanding that it wasn't quite as authoritative as I would have liked it to be.
Okay, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's take the Bible aside.
Okay.
What about a relationship with your Creator? Because you say atheist, not agnostic. And if I understand the difference, atheist is there is no God. Agnostic is I'm not sure.
That's kind of the colloquial understanding of atheist and agnostic. I would say, personally, I would say that agnosticism is a qualified position of atheism, because really, at the end of the day, you either believe in God or you don't. If you say, I'm not sure, that falls short of belief. So in that sense, agnosticism is a form of atheism often. So I call myself an agnostic atheist. There's kind of an understanding, though, that there's theism, agnosticism, and atheism, that agnosticism is kind of a middle ground, and I think that's a bit of a misunderstanding.
All right, so putting the Bible aside, because you and I haven't talked a lot about Bible.
Yep.
Right? We've kind of stayed more above the fray.
Yep.
And we'll get into the Bible. I mean, we as weeks go by and you hopefully return to the program, we'll talk more intimately. But right now, I'm kind of 100 foot from the foot of the cross.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, I'm not. The cross isn't in the picture right now. I'm talking about a creator.
Okay.
Because I can tell you that I have never doubted whether there was a creator. Never. There's nothing in the world, and this is kind of an invitation. If there's something that you think you can tell me that I'm ignorant of, that would put a question in my mind whether there's a creator, I'd love to hear it. And I don't mean that snarkily.
Sure.
I've just never had anybody tell me anything that said there's no creator. And the question I would say to that is, if you absolutely say there's no creator, then why am I wrong by saying I absolutely know there is? Neither one of us can prove the issue.
To start off with, I would say that I personally wouldn't make a claim to absolutely know there is not a creator. I don't know that there is not a creator. At this point, I hope not, because he's probably pretty ticked at me if there is.
No, he loves you very much.
But I don't claim to know that there is no creator. I just say that I have not seen sufficient evidence to hold up the proposition that there is a creator. So I think one of the things that I think I haven't done very well in my appearances on your show to this point, that maybe I can try and change that with today's appearance.
Go ahead. Seriously, whatever you need to do.
So there's a couple things here. One is that, and we talked briefly about it at the end of the show the last time I was here. When you ask a question like, is there something that I know that I could offer that would demonstrate to you that maybe you're wrong, or that maybe another faith tradition is right? It's hard for me to answer that question, because within the context of religious belief, what happens over time, and it starts off being taught, and then at some point we take over ourselves, is that we get ourselves into a circular train of thought, a circular reasoning pattern, where everything ends up supporting our original presupposition that there is a creator.
Sure.
And that's not, I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's human nature. I mean, we do it in politics. We do it. I do it as a Cyclone fan. You're not going to convince me that the Hawkeyes are better. It's just something that we do. It's the seeking of confirmation bias.
Right.
And it's very hard to step in and try and put a block in that circle to ask you to suspend that circular reasoning pattern, suspend that belief, because it feels inherently wrong or sinful when what you're taught is that everything is going to come back around to that.
But you're can I talk?
Sure.
You're assuming incorrectly, my friend, that I believe what I believe because I was taught that. Quite frankly, I didn't have, I may have misspoke earlier. I've always known there's a creator. He proved himself to me. He revealed himself to me. Gee, not until I was in my 40s. And I was a God guy.
But let me offer you a bit of an anecdote here, which by its very definition you can take it or leave it. But one thing that you very, very rarely see is somebody in the United States, say, or somebody from a predominantly Christian country, and the same thing goes for other faith traditions, have a revelation of Muhammad. Or you very rarely see somebody in Afghanistan have a revelatory moment that comes from a faith tradition outside of the predominant faith tradition of their family and geographical location. Now, does that in and of itself prove anything? No. I will be the first to admit that that does not prove anything. But it does suggest that there is something cultural, something social,
Sure.
and something inherited, whether we are consciously aware of it or not, in what we interpret to be experiences totally outside of ourselves. I mean, you would think that if in your case, if Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and if Yahweh, the God of the Bible, is the one true God, that the revelations that people experience the world over would have some similarities. But what you see is many Christians claiming experiences of Yahweh and Jesus, and many people in Arab nations claiming revelations from Allah and Muhammad, and people in Israel claiming revelation from Yahweh and saying that, well, let's wait on this Jesus thing.
Okay, but I feel really racist right now. I feel like I'm going to say, well, I know a black man, but I know a former Muslim. His name is his real name. Listen to this. His real name is Muhammad Ali Ahmed. And Mike, his name is Mike. We call him Mike Ahmed. Mike was on the cabinet with Anwar Sadat in Egypt.
Yes, I've heard you talk about this guy on your show before. Yeah,
he just gave his testimony at my Wednesday event, and he actually had Christ or God, Yahweh, whatever, tell him a Bible verse in his head that he had never heard of, never read. He didn't read the Bible, and God came to him and said, "Wrong religion." And the verse was, "Knock and I'll open the door." I'm not saying it right, but knock and I'll open the door, or knock and you open the door and I'll come in.
And I understand that there are exceptions to what I'm saying. There are absolutely exceptions. I will always acknowledge that. But when they happen, they are trumpeted as signs of ultimate truth by all faith traditions. The same thing. I mean, this same story happens over and over again on lots of lectures and lots of boring YouTube videos that I've watched coming from Islam. When this happens, when there's somebody of a non-traditional faith tradition of a particular area or region who experiences one of these things, they are trumpeted by those who agree with them as evidence of truth. And it's because what makes those stories powerful is their rarity, not their ubiquitous or common nature.
All right. Frank wants to get in here. I'll let him get in here. Our guest today is Christjahn Beck. He's the head of the Atheist organization up in Ames at ISU. One of the nicest guys. I know you won't like this, and I don't mean to insult you, but I just think God brought you into my life, either to learn about the lost or to, I'm sorry, that's an insult, to learn about your mindset and your worldview, or I may disciple your butt after 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure which, but it's one of them.
My grandpa will thank you if you do.
Well, I want to talk about language a little bit, the word trust. There has to be some wiggle room in there for distrust. So when I say this experience of Jesus can be experienced but not really explained. Now, you take Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Jesus said you can eat of any of these trees in the garden except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So he was asking them, in a sense, right there, to suspend critical thinking and just trust me. Just trust me based on what I'm telling you. He didn't give no further explanation. So right from the get-go, the believer walks by faith. So the opposite of faith is something where you have some wiggle room for doubt, distrust, disfaith, so to speak.
Okay, so let's talk about faith for a second, because this is an important topic.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, explain faith in 2 minutes. That's easy.
Well, no, you can do it afterwards. I'm just saying I got to break it.
I'm just cracking jokes. Who knows? Faith. Every religious tradition in the world today, and I would venture a guess that all previous religious traditions have offered faith as a prerequisite for coming to truly understand their doctrine. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, basically, yes.
All religious traditions, at least, ask you to have faith in order to fully understand the wisdom that they're trying to impart as part of their religious doctrine. What that means, since these religious traditions are mutually exclusive, they can't all be true, is that 99% of these are asking you to have faith, and they're asking it falsely. From your perspective, I would say probably all of them, but you would have to acknowledge that Zeus, probably Muhammad, Buddha, I mean various founders of faith traditions have asked people to have faith and have asked it falsely.
Well, what I'm proposing to you is that God's never going to eliminate all room for doubt. Because if you go along with the free will, and I know you have some Calvinist Presbyterian background, so that may not be with you as much as me, but you have to have some choice.
All right, we are coming up on our first break. Our guest is Christjahn Beck. If you'd like to ask him a question, 244-0077, 855-244-0077. Randy and Jill King here. Ryan's here. Frank's here. And I'm here. And I thank you for listening to The Truth 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome back. The Truth 99.3. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today. This is called The View from a Pew. And The View from a Pew is different than most radio shows that you'll listen to. And I realize it's not the most popular format. I love listening to David Jeremiah, and I love listening to R.C. Sproul. And all day long, I enjoy listening to the shows that we have on. I appreciate that the Truth Network lets this show on because I think this is a show for people with particular tastes. I'll give you an example. I love black olives. I like them on pizza. I like them on eggs. I like them, don't go crazy, I love them on chocolate ice cream. Now, all of you probably, especially when I got to the last one, went, huh? But for those people that love black olives, you guys, your ears perked up and you went, wow, I love that guy. I love black olives. That's kind of what this show is. It's that taste. It's that anchovy of radio shows. It's not for everybody. This is kind of like being able to listen to a sermon and then hold up your hand and ask the pastor something because you don't understand. Mike, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. I don't get what you did. Well, if I did that at Lutheran Church of Hope, I can only imagine what Householder would do to me. But here we've got people in. Today we've got, usually we have preachers, teachers, and pastors. Today we've got a teacher. Now, Christjahn is not a Christian teacher. He's a agnostic teacher.
Agnostic atheist.
Okay. And I think it's just as important to learn from them as from people who think that way, who have that worldview, that it is for us to be able to disciple and preach the Word of God. So this show may not be for you, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you. We're all the shows are on podcasts, so if you want to get a new flavor, go to The View from a Pew and hit archives, and you can watch, I don't know, 4 years, Ryan, probably 4 years of shows, and they're all there. Now, today we have Christjahn Beck, who is with the Atheist Agnostic Group at ISU. Frank, of course, is here. And Jill and Randy King from King's Christian Bookstore are joining us. And you made a good point about free will, Frank, so I want to start there.
Okay, well, I believe that we were morally depraved, and I believe that God's grace, my unmerited favor, broke that bondage of moral depravity, and I'm now a moral free agent to choose. So within that choice ability to choose wrong, there has to be some ability to doubt God, because Adam and Eve were given this opportunity in the garden. Do not eat of this tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the day you eat of, ye shall surely die. So he didn't give no further explanation. Bill Maher might say, well, they had to suspend their critical thinking, but nonetheless, there was room for doubt. There was room for trust. There was room for distrust. So I guess what I'm saying is if you want enough rope to hang yourself, God will give you that rope.
So this is a very important part of this ongoing discussion, and I think it's something that's probably going to come up again after today. There is, for a long time, there has been a trend, but especially recently it's picked up, to answer a lot of very difficult theological questions using free will, which is to say, why do bad things happen in the world? Well, God gave us free will, and we're living in a fallen world. Why are there non-believers? Well, free will. Why are there other faith traditions? Free will. Free will is offered as a kind of cure-all to a lot of the problems that people like me, like atheists, will throw out. So that said, it's important to hammer out. My problem with the biblical notion of free will, and the entire concept of free will, is something that's very difficult to describe, especially in light of recent research in neuroscience and some of the work, oddly, that Sam Harris is doing. I won't talk about Sam Harris a lot, but he's doing some interesting work. The biblical concept of free will is basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words into any of your mouths, that in order to have a more pure and loving relationship with humanity, God gave humans free will so that we could choose Him, so that we could choose to have a relationship with God, and in so doing, in that choice and in that act of choosing to love and have a relationship with God, we most efficiently glorify Him. That's a really weird way to say it. That's just me popping off the top of my head there. But is that...
Well, let me ask you this. That tablet over there you have, or notebook, can that notebook love you? Can you data program that notebook to love you?
Not to my knowledge.
Does anybody here in this room have kids that would want to data program them to love them, or would they rather have them jump in bed with you on a Sunday morning and hug you and kiss you out of their own free ability to do that?
Well, let's wait a second, because I don't want to get too derailed here. Start talking about artificial intelligence and love that's a whole weird bag of tricks. The biblical notion of free will, this idea that God gives us the option of choosing Him or not. Now, what I would say is this an option, a choice, in a way that any of us would recognize as a choice? If your choice is, and this is going to sound cliche-ish, and I apologize for slipping into this, but just bear with me for a minute. If your choice is choose to worship and love God and spend eternity in paradise with Him, or turn away and be tortured for eternity in hell, is that a choice that any of us would recognize as a free choice? Or is that sound more like coercion.
Well, what will that computer do if you don't choose a certain thing? You'll get a setting, and what's that setting? It usually does. It falls back on a default setting. So what you're saying is, if you don't choose God, Satan will choose you. Now, you may walk out of this room and you may say, hey, look, I don't want either one of you. I don't want God or Satan. I don't want to serve either one of you. But by default, if you don't choose God, Satan is going to get you by default.
Yeah, but can I put words in your mouth?
Please do.
I'm going to play the atheist for a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to love this.
He doesn't believe in Satan. He doesn't believe in God. I love you, buddy, but you're trying to make the Bible your basis of argument. It's like you're trying to tell the football players how to play by soccer rules.
Sure, but you got someone that's at least going along with the argument.
How'd I do on that? Huh? Pretty good.
I appreciate that. It's a good point that Mac makes, and it's a good point that you make.
I mean, that's why we haven't talked about the Bible in all three of the shows that we've done.
Right.
Why should I talk about something that you don't believe in?
Well, one thing that I can say is I have studied the Bible. Man, have I studied the Bible. I would never claim to be an expert, but I have. I've spent a lot of time both believing in it, torturously trying to maintain my belief in it, and finally saying, okay, I don't believe in this anymore. But now if it's something that I'm going to take a stand against, I darn sure better know what the heck I'm talking about. So I'm happy to talk about the Bible, but it is a very different conversation. What Frank is asking, I still think this idea that the devil gets us by default, is that going to happen if God doesn't want the devil to take us? Is the devil going to take us?
Well, the first thing, you mentioned something about eternal torment. You see,
Yes.
I brought this up about Robert Ingersoll.
Sure.
He's the father of modern-day agnosticism. And his father was a fire and brimstone preacher who preached every Sunday of God's love, God's mercy, and then turned around in the next breath and said, if you don't choose that love and mercy, you're going to be dipped in hell forever and ever and ever, and turned around and tortured a couple million years on the other side.
Yes.
If you'll come to grips that eternal torment is false doctrine, and Robert Ingersoll and Thomas Paine's writings is going to lead more people to damnation than they're going to bring to God, it might start to clear up a little bit in your mind that God isn't this sadistic overkill person that people think he is.
Maybe. I mean, certainly theologians have made that argument, and far be it from me to claim intellectual superiority over thousands of years of theologians. But what I would say is that when you have to believe as a matter of your doctrine that there is a way to square a God who would give us the choice to burn in hell with a loving God, you're going to figure out a way to go through the mental gymnastics to justify it. Because I've done it. I've been there, Frank. Trust me. I have said what you're saying. I've turned to the Bible. I've tried to turn away from the Bible as a way of explaining this to people.
But there is a judgment, and it will involve fire. But the fire is not going to be eternal, because Scripture says we will walk on the ashes of the wicked. It does not say hot embers or hot coals.
Okay, you're done for a while. You keep quoting the Bible.
Okay.
Frank, the voice is here. Jill and Randy King. You got anything you want to jump in here, Randy?
Not yet.
Okay, you're welcome. Christjahn is our guest. But you have free will, right?
Maybe. Man, we're about to go down a rabbit hole here.
Well, but you have free will.
It's possible. It's very difficult to this isn't as easy. See, this is one of the problems with a lot of these conversations, is that things like what we talked about a little bit before the show started, when you're talking about things like free will or the argument for God out of the existence of creation, what you're appealing to is common sense and our everyday experience. We all have the everyday experience of making a choice.
Yeah.
So that seems so intuitive that to suggest otherwise just sounds absurd.
Well, but it's true. I'm sorry it sounds absurd. The truth many times is cloaked in many wrappings.
Sure.
But you have, God or no God, you have a choice of what you do.
What do you mean when you say free will? To make sure that we're not talking past each
Okay.
other, to make sure that we're on the same page. What do you mean when you say free will?
Let me try to make it simple. In front of me, I have a glass of ice water.
Okay.
I have the choice to pick that ice water up and drink it, or to throw the glass on Frank.
Go with option 2.
Hey, I have the choice to do that.
Yes.
And it doesn't cost me anything. I'm sorry. If you do that, it doesn't cost you anything. Because you don't have God's will. You don't have anything over here that says, why in the heck would you throw cold water on Frank? What a rude person you are. That's just wrong. Your thinking is I can do whatever I want because there's no rule book.
That's a slightly different issue. But first, let me offer you this to see if it changes. Changes the conversation, the discussion at all. One thing that I've noticed is that I say conversation a million times every time I'm here, so I'm trying to actively stop saying it. Anyways,
It's okay.
Moving on. So what if I told you, and this is true, that what we can do now, and I shouldn't say we because I'm not a neuroscientist, but as part of the research that I've done in this area, the reading, just to understand this from a layperson's perspective, one of the things that I know is that we can hook people up to machines that measure brain waves. We can give them an option of, say, 3 different colored balls, and we can say, pick a ball. Somebody will pick a ball, and they'll say, I freely chose this ball. What doctors and what scientists have been able to discover is that by monitoring their brain waves, we can measure not only when they make that decision, but oftentimes we can predict the decision that they're going to make. And before they actually make that decision. We can measure that, and we can see it take place before they make that decision.
We got to take a break.
Sure.
But you don't think that's intelligent design? That's the way your brain works?
That could be a lot of things, but if that is intelligent design, then it's not free will.
Okay, good point. Good point. I'll give you that. Maybe. We'll come back live here on The Truth, 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing. We have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
We're the ones in the pew, not pulpit. Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 22 before the top of the hour. We appreciate you taking the time to listen on this day. This show is being broadcast live on the 6th, Friday the 6th of February. And if you're listening or watching on a podcast, we sure appreciate that. As an old radio guy, this is really hard for me to say, but we have 4 to 5 times the viewership / listenership on our podcast that we do live. And I didn't realize this, but I was talking to a friend of mine who's a talk show host, a national talk show host. He finds the same thing. So this is what the internet has done for talk radio, because it's destroyed music radio. You know, why would I listen to KJJY or KGGO or Star or KIOA when I can go to Pandora and said classic country, classic rock, new hits, you know? But talk radio seems to be thriving because of the podcast, and I appreciate you listening on the podcast. What question do you have for me? We've been sitting here pelleting you with questions. I have a whole page full here that I think of during the week, but I want to give you an opportunity. Put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I trust you.
Okay. What would it take for any of you, and this is a bit of a cheap question, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm trying to trap you. What would it take to get you to truly question what you've come to believe?
Yeah, good question. Go ahead.
Well, I've been told that the closest star to our planet is Primera Centauri. It's 4 light years away, 24 trillion miles away. It would take a spaceship traveling 25,000 miles an hour, 120,000 years to reach there. If you can go search the constellation Orion, the great nebula, where M42, which is one of the most beautiful constellations in our universe, if you can search that from end to end and you can tell me you found no God, I'll believe there's no God. But so far, we've not escaped the bounds of this solar system because, like that computer quarantines a virus, God has quarantined this solar system off so this contamination doesn't spread to the rest of his perfect universe.
So do you mean to suggest by that God is located in a star cluster somewhere?
I believe heaven is located in the constellation Orion, the great nebula M42, beyond that M42.
Well, you guys are way above my pay grade here.
You just went above my pay grade.
Man.
That's something we need to come back to. That's something we need.
That's something you two can talk about
we'll
off
talk,
the air.
We'll talk about that off the air.
My little 6-year-old just fell off the stool, and I'm running for crackers. Because I don't get that conversation at all.
Heaven is in the Orion constellation. Okay.
And I don't agree with him, by the way. I don't know if he's wrong or right. I just don't agree.
Okay.
I'd like to give you an answer. And I've thought about this. I've thought about losing my wife to something tragic, you know, like a rape and murder. I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
Not only losing my wife would just devastate me because I just love her so much. We've been together 30 years this year, and I love her more today than I did 30 years ago. Losing her is not going to bother me. Losing her in such a violent way, I have no doubt, is going to cause me and God to have a conversation. But I'm not willing to say, because of what happened, there is no God. The only answer I have for you, and this is really a stupid answer, I'll admit it. If I die and I don't know it, then I guess there's no God.
If you die and you do not know it. So do you mean if you die and the answer to this question isn't revealed to you? Or do you mean...
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
I mean, if I die and I don't wake up in a terrible place or a wonderful place or just some place, Baskin Robbins would be fine with me. If I die and don't know it, because the only way you're going to know you're dead is if you wake up. If I die and don't know it, then I guess there's no God.
So in the here and now...
In the here and now.
There is nothing that you can imagine that would force you to seriously question your faith.
I don't think so. Now remember, this is not Christianity. This is my belief in the Creator. There's a difference for me.
Okay, and that's something that I want to get to. Maybe not today if we don't have time. But what I want to do, because I thought that would be your answer, because it's
fine. Now he's a psychic.
No, yeah, I'm far
head of the psychics and the atheists.
I'm far from a psychic.
Can you give me the lottery numbers?
It's
$360 million.
Yeah, well, if I could do
Let's
that,
split it.
I'll kick you some of the money. I promise. What I want to do, though, because I get that answer a lot, and I'm not saying you're not being genuine. I know you're being genuine when you give that answer, and I'm not saying that I'm psychic. What I'm saying is, what that demonstrates is what I started off talking about when you said that you wanted to listen to me, which is that in the context of a faith tradition, you end up in this self-imposed echo chamber where you cannot... It's like the Narcissus trap. If any of you can go back to... It's the Narcissus trap. You're staring into a pool. You're crying out, and what you hear is echo standing in the bushes, and you think it's somebody else because you're seeing your own reflection. You think it's another voice. What you're hearing is yourself. It's a Narcissus trap where you are incapable of breaking that loop because you constantly hear your own confirmation bias, and even when you seek out others, it's others who are going to... And then by having me here, I have to obviously say that this isn't something that you're totally committed to, because you are genuine. You are an incredibly honest and caring man. I've come to consider you a friend of mine.
You are,
and
yes.
I've never experienced any ill intent when I've been here or when I've talked to you. So I know that this is something that's a little bit of a false criticism, but it's only to point out that when you are beholden to a belief that is such a core part of who you are, that to question that would throw into a spiral everything else about your life.
But you're talking about identity, and I've been through identity crises. I know what it feels like to have somebody tell me the day before Thanksgiving 2009 that you're off the radio, and my identity just shatters. That doesn't happen when I think about a world without God. That doesn't happen. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying that doesn't apply to some people. I can't speak for some people, but I can speak for myself. I don't have to think about whether there's a creator.
Well, let me ask you this. What would a world without God look like?
I don't know.
That's my point.
I mean, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. The answer is what you see. I see all around me a world without God. I see people every day that do not have a God worldview or a biblical worldview.
You see people living in denial of God or people worshiping false gods. But what you see in creation, the way that you view the world around you, is that everything has a purpose, that there is a greater good, and that creation itself serves as evidence for the existence of God, correct?
Well, yeah, but I also see within creation the destruction that man has caused.
Okay. So, and this goes back to a little bit of what you guys were talking about yesterday with the watchmaker thing. And I'll make this point quick. If you see design in everything around us,
all right,
how is it that we contrast when you say I don't know what a world without God would look like? I understand that, because what we don't have is a measure by which we can contrast that. So when I ask you what it would take for you to question your faith, it's hard to even conceive of anything when literally the existence of everything is itself a proof. And I'm rambling here a little bit,
That's
and
all
I
right.
apologize.
No, you're not rambling, but we are up against a break, and we're going to come back with only 8 minutes, and I have gotten to nothing on my list. That's because Frank talks too much. It's all his fault. We will come back with the last 8 minutes. Christjahn Beck here live on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, Christjahn Beck is here. He's he's the head of the atheist and agnostic group up at Iowa State. You're not the head. I always say that. There's somebody else that's the head, but you're part of the group.
I'm the president. I am.
Okay, you are the president.
Yeah.
All right. I want to kind of speed things up for just a second.
Sure.
What if there is a God, and for some reason you found out right now? I don't know how, but you found out right now. How would that change your life?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
For one thing, similar to what you just said, I don't know necessarily what it would take to prove that to me. I can take solace in.
No,
I
don't prove it.
Okay.
It's proven to you. You're the one that says to me.
It's assumed that it is approved.
You call me up and you say, "I know there's a God." Okay, great.
What it would do would change the way that I view the world, and it would change the way that I approached my life in some ways, not many, because what I would want to do would be to ask some questions, because the way that I understand it, if there is a God, if it's been proven to me that there is a God, then I am darn near 100% sure that it's not this one.
It's not the book of the Bible.
It's not the Bible.
Okay.
It's not the Christian God.
Okay.
Because
don't say the Bible is a Christian God. That is a God.
Okay.
That's the only history book we have of mankind. It becomes Christian in the New Testament, I agree. But in the Old Testament, that's just a history of the world.
That's not what the Jews would say.
They wouldn't?
No, of course
They wouldn't
not.
tell you that the Old Testament is the history book?
They would tell you that it's their holy book. They would tell you that it reveals to them Yahweh, and they would say that the New Testament is a false prophecy. It's a false fulfillment of prophecy.
Okay.
So to say that it's a history book and the one history book, It's not that. It is not that. I mean, we know that there are historical inaccuracies within the Bible.
We don't.
Sure we do.
No, we don't.
We know that there are some historical inaccuracies within the Bible. That is, I mean, that's as far
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at what you're saying because you can't prove that.
It's something that scholars discuss all the time.
Yeah.
The scholarly, the academic review of the Bible. Not all of it. I mean, there are some things you can talk about. The existence of the temples. You can look at some of the archaeological stuff. But as far as let's say something. What's something that everybody knows? Noah, the flood. Mm-hmm. There is nothing in the geological record to show that there was ever a worldwide flood.
But there's nothing to prove there wasn't.
But
we have a writing that proves there was.
You can't prove a negative. But if you want to put the writings in the Bible up against the entirety of the geological record, you're free to do so. What I'm saying is that to the extent that we can know anything about the past, which is, I mean, in and of itself, you're talking about probabilities and probabilistic outcomes rather than certainties. But to the extent that we can know anything, we do know that there is no geological record of the flood. There just isn't. There, not within any of the fossil, and there are people, I promise you, there are people out there right now who are grinding their teeth, who are talking about an archaeological site in Mississippi, and there's one in Canada, and there's one in Texas, where people want to say, well, look, we have
one in,
where they'll say, well, we have human footprints in dinosaurs, and they've all been thoroughly debunked academically. But getting back to your question about how it would change my perspective, I would want to ask God a series of questions about what life was like, why he or she created the universe, what the ultimate goal of it was, and why he/she has allowed the things to happen that it has allowed to happen.
All right. I want to answer that.
Okay.
But, Frank, I see you over there waving flags. Are you on this topic, or are you going to change the topic?
Well, I wanted to ask the question we asked during the break that he thought was...
Okay, then you hang on just a second.
Okay.
I want you to look at this face. And someday in the future, you're going to have a little boy, and he's going to look like this, because I used to have hair your color, and we're both kind of rosy in our complexion, okay? You're going to have a little boy, and he's going to be about 12. He's going to be a smart kid, I bet. Okay, what if he asks you those same questions? Or let's say he's 6. What if he asks you, his father, those same proof of existence questions? How would you answer? Not about God, about him.
About which questions are you talking about?
Well, all the ones you just rattled off that you challenge God with.
I don't know.
That's the point is, you'd look at your son and you'd say, son, you just have to trust me. You have to have faith that I am your biological father, that your mother is your biological mother, that we love you, that if you put your hand on a stove, you're going to lose a couple layers of skin. If you decide to go out in the street and punch somebody in the face, you're going to go to jail.
Mm-hmm. Those are very different questions. We can prove whether somebody's paternal parents of their children. We can do DNA tests. These are things we can prove. We can point to a codified law. We can say there are the laws of Des Moines that show that if you punch somebody, you're going to go to jail.
But those are man-made laws.
But that's what I'm saying. That's a very different question than saying what's the meaning of life or.
All right. Only because I love you, I'm going to let you ask this question, because you're going to totally throw off the end of the show. But go ahead.
Well, that was quite a build-up.
I know. I try to be fair with you.
Let me ask you, because you thought this was a pretty good question. In an alternate universe where there is no God, by definition, how can an atheist exist?
Because what atheism is the rejection of the assertion that there is a God or gods.
See, it's the assertion. He disagrees with what you believe. He doesn't disagree that there's a God. He disagrees that you believe there's a God, which means he just wants to argue.
It means that what I disagree with is the assertion that there is a God or that one can be established to exist. So all that there needs to be in order for atheists to exist are other people who are claiming that a God or gods do exist. So to the extent that I want to argue, I'm a political science major. I majored in wanting to argue. But the existence or non-existence of a God is not affected. The ultimate truth of that proposition is not affected by whether or not there are people around to believe or not believe in it.
Well, Christjahn, I'm sorry. I'm more frustrated with you than I was 50 minutes ago. So, and we're out of time, and so we'll have to wait for you to come back, which I hope will be in a couple weeks. I didn't get to one thing on my list today. All right. Thanks for being here. Frank, thanks for being a good sport. Jill and Randy, thanks for being here. Ryan, thanks for producing. This Friday, you're going to go to church on Sunday. And between now and then, I want you to think about somebody that you don't like, somebody you hate, somebody you have a resentment against, somebody that lives free between the 5 inches of your head. And on this weekend, I want you to give that relationship and that resentment to God. I want you to learn to forgive so you can be forgiven.